Are good leaders born, or are they made? What we know is that it takes all kinds of experiences to lead, especially in the social sector. Welcome to The Ripple Effect. I'm Caroline Broadhurst, Deputy Chief Exec at the Rank Foundation. In this series, I'll be speaking with leaders from across the UK, learning what led them to work in the social sector and what shaped them into the inspiring leaders they are today. In this episode, I'm joined by Debbie Fawcett, the CEO of HARV Domestic Violence Team, a domestic abuse service in East Lancashire. Debbie has an MA in leadership, but it was the challenges she faced when HARV lost a large contract that have taught her the most about being a leader. Her entrepreneurialism and a flexible approach to people management has enabled the charity to go from strength to strength. I asked Debbie to look back at her early aspirations and career moves to understand how she got to where she is today. Here's what Debbie had to share.
Oh, I don't know whether I had any. So I brought up in a working class family. Everybody worked at the slipper factory in Blackburn. One of my early jobs was working in the Greyhound Stadium. So very much didn't know anybody that had been to university. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Did a bit of art stuff. So I went to art college for a while, but didn't really have any ideas about kind of my future.
And how did you get into the community art?
So I did BTEC in textiles. And then I ended up working in a private nursery and then ended up at a community centre doing creche work for a women's group. And they basically got an arts worker who came to do some work with them, got on really well with her, ended up going and seeing what they did and then started to do some work for a community arts organisation. And then got to a point where I got children, so I needed to, in those days you had to work over 16 hours to kind of get extra benefits or whatever, and I basically started to look at going to university, and I've been doing some youth work, so that I was looking at whether I went to do community arts as a degree or whether I went to youth and community degree, and basically kind of worked out that I'd have two streams if I did the youth and community, and ended up doing a youth and community degree.
And never looked back?
Never looked back.
So you've done so many different things career-wise. How did this varied insight benefit you when you moved into the social sector?
I think because, I was a single parent at 26, went to university, I've been on benefits, I'd done part-time work. So I've lived a lot of it. So I think when I did my degree, I then started to work with homeless young people and then moved more into working with adults. So I set up a couple of show starts. So a lot of it was kind of my experience, but also it is that I think a lot of people that work for the charitable sector, they've lived a lot of the stuff that they end up doing.
Yeah. And you came into HARV how long ago was that?
20 years.
20 years.
It's ridiculous.
Debbie, can you tell us what HARV stands for?
So HARV stands for High and Vulnerable Valley, which is the areas that we cover in East Lancashire. And we're a domestic abuse service for adult and children who are victims of all sexual and domestic abuse. I came 20 years ago and basically said to the very small staff team, I'll be here for 2 years. At that point, I've been setting up show starts. I tended to do a job for a couple of years, set it up and then go and find something new and exciting. And never left, and I'm still there. And I think that because it's grown underneath me, there's still so much to do and there's so many opportunities and it still excites me. So I think until it stops exciting me, I will be staying put.
Great. And tell us some of the services and support that you provide as an organisation.
So as an organisation, we work with adult victims. So we do everything from crisis. So somebody might come to us today, they need a new accommodation. We'd support them into their own, and either our refuge or their own accommodation, make their own accommodation safe, support them through court, support them with the police. And then kind of the longest term stuff around supporting them to understand their experiences and how they can kind of use those in a positive way to shape themselves and kind of look at, if you live with violence and you've kind of managed to survive, if you thrive, the skills that you've developed, you're going to be amazing. And then we also offer a children's service, so we work with all the children attached to any of our adult victims.
That must be very challenging.
I mean, again, my experience is when I first came, I was doing the frontline work, so I know it enough. We've got a really skilled staff team. And I think, again, that's part of the stuff that I really enjoy. It's about that. All of our staff are really committed to what they do. They're all passionate about it. I'm very confident that anybody could walk up to our door and be treated with dignity and respect. And that's the key thing for me. I can't teach you to care about somebody. If you don't have that empathy, then you're not going to fit in our team.
Right. And doing that frontline work those years ago, did that change your perspective in any way?
I mean, I don't think so, because I think, again, I lived it and kind of seen it and experienced kind of working with a lot of women in women's groups. And once you start to talk to people, usually they're quite upfront about the things that they've learned. I think that the difference in the 20 years that I've been there is around the deprivation and how that affects people's life choices, but also the additional needs that people are coming to. Because at one point, kind of 20 years ago, if somebody came to us, there might have been 10 other services that could support them. Well, there might be 2. So we're having to do a lot more and manage kind of risk that we would never have. So they'd have been open to social care 20 years ago, they're not anymore.
And so how do you and your team manage or cope with that demand that you face each day?
I mean, I think we're really lucky. So I've got a really qualified, experienced team of predominantly women. We're really clear about supporting each other, trying to make sure that people have got the skills that they need. People have 6 weekly case supervision. They have monthly supervision. We also have external clinical supervision. So we're really clear that it is the sort of job that you need to be looked after to be able to do.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us an idea of the size of the organisation in terms of the number of staff and the number of people you support?
So there's 46 staff across the services that are based within the building. Probably 28 of those are from HARV. We currently accommodate 14 families at any one time. We run groups every day. So we have a food bank, so there's lots of things going on in the building all of the time. So I think we've probably become more of a community hub than we used to be. So again, 20 years ago, domestic violence was very hidden. You didn't tell anybody where your organisation was. It was very secret. It was very hush-hush. And I think, rightly so, people are more aware of domestic abuse. And we've become a lot more involved in the general community. And I think that gives us a safety.
And in addition to the community hub, the building, you also have a lake.
Doesn't everybody not have a lake?
Got Lake Envy. Tell me about your lake.
So, I mean, the lake's just really bizarre, and I think it's part of the journey that we've been on. So, during COVID, the only outside space we had was basically a path facing the lake. So, I got in touch with the people that own the lake and said, we think that we own the bank. We want to put some decking onto the banking. And they said, why don't you buy the lake? And I think 20 years ago, I'd have gone, I'm a domestic violence service, why do I want to buy a lake? But actually we went, yeah. So with the support of Rank, we bought a lake. Mm-hmm. And again, that's all around social investment and social enterprise. So, offering opportunities for our service users around paddleboarding, looking at different development opportunities we can have. And actually, is that I want our service users to have the best opportunities they can. And it is that, it's nice sitting and looking at the lake, even if you don't get in it. And I think that's been the lovely thing about having the building, having the lake, means that actually, people can be part of a different element of the service and they can make a choice. And again, for our service users, they've probably had a lot of choice taken away from them. They've also, so one of the things that we do with our children's team is we do a stay and play group. So one of the things that we realised was a lot of our women, they've been told they're rubbish mums. How did you allow this to happen? Why did you stay with the perpetrator for so long? You. Actually, nobody's said you're a good parent. Nobody's worked with them around setting boundaries with the children. And I just remember we had a service user, and after the stay and play, we do like a positive, things that you found from today. And this woman just saying, nobody has ever said anything positive about my parenting. And for me, that's part of my passion, actually, treating people with respect and dignity and seeing that development and seeing people become proud and excited and valued and actually growing.
Brilliant. For you, what do you find most rewarding about the work you do?
For me, it is that actually, success is somebody that was brave enough to ring us and actually speak when we answer the phone, because it's a big deal being honest about what's going on at home. And I think that still drives me, that we just need to be there and be that person that can support somebody.
Can I ask you about your leadership journey? And you mentioned you have children yourself. How have they influenced your leadership style?
I mean, I think probably my leadership is very much about being that kind of parenting role. So I'm very much about looking after staff, making sure that they know the rules. I think we're clear about what's okay and what's not okay. But again, it's that thing about, developing people. We don't want people to come and work for us and leave us the same as they came. Actually, they've got to be on a journey. They've got to grow. They've got to develop. And actually, we retain staff. We've got staff that have been with us 15 years plus. And I always say, because we take a lot of social work students, we are like Marmite. You will either love us or hate us. And if you love us, you'll stick around, because it's a nice place to be. And we're very clear about celebrating successes. And I think that's the thing that a lot of domestic violence services don't get to see. If you're just a refuge, literally, you take somebody in, they move out, and you never hear from them. Whereas for us, we could be working with somebody for 3 or 4 years, so you get to see that progression. And actually, I think I underestimated the value in that for staff around their well-being. I mean, I think it's about being part of somebody's journey. And I think one of the things, so at one point we were running a commission, and we were only working with people for 6 weeks, and it just felt a bit like a conveyor belt. And when we lost the contract, although it was devastating at the time, it really changed the way we work. And actually, I don't think we'd change again, because actually what you need to do is you need to be there for people. And that crisis, and particularly with domestic abuse, if there's children, there's still going to be contact with the perpetrator. The children are going to be victims and kind of survivors of domestic abuse long term. So actually for me, the service has now been built around those victims rather than us meeting the needs of the commissioners. And actually what we learned is I really had underestimated how that might affect staff as well, because I think when we were commissioned, you didn't get a chance to get to know people. You've got a remit. You weren't it wasn't voluntary sector work. We were probably doing a statutory job on that kind of, tick these boxes and you've got to do this. Whereas actually as a true, now I feel a true charity, actually we're really looking at what our service users need. And actually being part of that journey long term means you get to see those changes. You build those trusting relationships. Because again, you're asking somebody to tell you things that they've never told anybody before.
Right. So would you have some tips for us in terms of that leadership style, nurturing staff and supporting them?
I think the tip is it's about being passionate about it. 20 years later, I still love it. I still enjoy going to work and kind of seeing that development and experiencing staff celebrating the things that they're really proud of. I think if you don't enjoy it, get out. And if you do enjoy it, find the bit that you enjoy the most. Don't like finance particularly, but I'll do it. Actually the bit that I really like is the development of staff.
Right, yeah. And it sounds like you're very inclusive in the way that you support your staff. Can you explain to me what you understand inclusive leadership to be?
I mean, I think what we've tried to do is make sure that everybody's got a voice. So at least once a month we have a team meeting. So everybody that is in the building, everybody meets. We do a lot of kind of trying to make sure that people feel supported. And that's everybody. And again, it's that thing of we are inclusive, but the reality is, because we're still quite small, there isn't this progression. So if you came to us today as a social work student, literally, even if you want a job, we might not have any available. Or if you're a member of staff with us, my senior management team have been with us 10 years, so you're kind of waiting for somebody to win the lottery and go. So I've started to look a lot about actually those progression routes and how we support people to develop. So really clear around training. We take social work students, but also any training that we can kind of access for staff, we will. We're accessing the social work apprenticeships that we can get a bursary for as a charity. So I've got 3 staff doing the social work apprenticeship route. So I think for me it's that development stuff around actually how do we get people to feel valued, feel developed and feel passionate about what they do. And again, we have quite a nice throughput, so we've started to look at how ex-service users might want to come into the sector. So we've recently taken on 2 ex-service users who've been out of service, but actually are really passionate about doing the sort of work that and being part of that journey for somebody else. And actually, they know it better than anybody else.
And you've mentioned that you are more comfortable being called a leader rather than a CEO. Can you tell me a bit why that is?
I think the CEO's it's like a proper grown-up, isn't it? So I think for me it's that leading's different because I think people have got a choice. So I think if you're a leader, people choose to follow you. Whereas a CEO, it feels more like that kind of authority figure that you've not got a say in. And I think for me, part of my leadership style is I don't know it all. I don't do that frontline work anymore. So I need my senior management team to tell me what I need to do or if we need to change things. So you can't lead if you don't know that people will follow you.
Okay. And you have that leadership role locally, but also at a national level?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So I've got 2 roles, so locally at HARV, so East Lancs, and then Paladin, which is National Stalking Service. I also am part-time CEO for that service. And that's weird because I think I probably feel more confident being CEO for that.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I don't know. I think because it's a different role. So I think the local charity, it's about relationships with local services. It's about building those links. It's about making those kind of friendships, if you will. Whereas on a national footprint, you haven't got that luxury. So you've got to be more corporate. You've got to be more, not professional, because I wouldn't say I wasn't professional as a leader in a local charity, but you've got to kind of present differently, I suppose.
Debbie, you've mentioned that you have an MA in leadership. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how you apply that in both your local role and your national CEO role?
So I think that was it was a voluntary sector leadership MA, and I think I'd done, because sometimes as a charity you get opportunities to do courses, and I think when I then saw something that was voluntary sector, I was like, oh, that's for me, because I think it is very unique. And that was really useful because I think we had people who'd worked for Oxfam. So again, I think we've talked a bit about it around actually who do you aspire to be, and that's part of the problem for the charitable sector, because it's really hard to see who you want to be next, particularly if there isn't anybody above you because you're kind of a small organisation. So it was really useful around just kind of giving you the space to kind of think about your leadership and kind of, if anything, it kind of embedded some of the things that I probably did quite naturally, that when you read a theorist, you go, oh, somebody like proper's talking about that. So I think it was more about kind of, it probably gave me a bit more confidence to carry on doing what I was doing and perhaps tweak some of the things that I hadn't been sure about. I think a lot of it was around just that confidence, because I think, again, I've been in this role 20 years. I came as the manager. So in a lot of ways, my role hasn't changed. It's just the organisation size and income's changed massively. And I think you have those wobbles where you kind of go, how did I get here? How did I get here and am I doing it right? And I think doing the MA in voluntary sector management was a really good way to just kind of, again, give myself permission to spend a bit of time going, actually, am I doing this right? Because what I also found was at one point I was using an external supervisor, and I just think you don't really know what I'm doing. You're saying you're doing really well, but I could be telling you all sorts. So it felt like it was a really good way for me to check with myself, really, that I was doing the things that I thought I was doing in the right way.
Right. And for our sector, the social sector, what do you think we could do better?
I think that's one of the things that Rank does really well, because I think in every other group that I'm part of, you're with other people that are doing what you're doing. So there's always that competition, or there's that underlying, what are you doing differently to me? And some of that's healthy, but some of that's not healthy. Whereas I think for Rank, I've met people that I wouldn't meet in my job, but actually I can learn from them. And I think that's the beauty of kind of the Rank network, because actually you get to meet people and share, because actually there's a culture of how can we help each other, and I think that's what we need to do as a sector, get better at supporting each other.
And how do you think we could do that? Improve on what we do, maybe at Rank, but also for the whole sector?
I think some of it is that relationship, so I don't know how you do it if you didn't have a network, because actually how do you know? So, for example, how would I know who to talk to about doing outdoor pursuits when my whole world is domestic violence services? Because I sit on domestic abuse meetings and say I bought a lake, and they all look at me like I've lost the plot. Whereas other meetings, people are really excited by it, and I think that's what we're missing. Sometimes we stay in our lane too much, and I think we need to get better. But that's time and capacity in that. We need to get better at not getting in somebody else's lane, but at least just having a quick nosy at what they're doing and what we can learn from them.
Good tip there. And finally, what do you think in our sector, what do you think we should celebrate more? And how should we do it?
I think we should celebrate our successes. I think that's one of the things that I'm really clear that we haven't done. You know, we're not very good at saying this is what we've achieved, because we're too busy going, right, I've done that job, what's the next one? And I think we need to spend a bit more time and probably a bit more money. And again, we don't like spending money on it, on just kind of flagging some of the things that we do and the value that we bring and the networks that we've got. And I think we're really bad at that.
So more celebration.
Yes.
Debbie, thanks again for coming today and speaking on the podcast. Always inspirational and lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Ripple Effect, brought to you by the Rank Foundation and Purposeful Marketing. This episode featured Debbie Fawcett, CEO of HARV Domestic Violence Team. The producers were Cass Stenton, alongside Michaela Carmichael and James Shield, courtesy of the Feast Collective. Tune into The Ripple Effect